Oh, it drives me nuts that I see stuff out there, and it's like, some dumbass sat in his room and without any personality or charisma. It drives me nuts. Just
Okay, I've only put those videos up last week, but
Yes, this week's deep dive is one of our favorite and probably geekiest of film writers and directors. It's Shane Black, and it is The Nice Guys.
Dive.
It came out in 2016, directed and written by Shane Black. The film stars Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, and it is set in 1977 Los Angeles. The film focuses on Private Eye Holland March, played by Gosling, and tough enforcer for hire Jackson Healy, played by Russell Crowe. And in perfect Shane Black style, the two team up to investigate the disappearance of a teenage girl. This film has all the traits of everything that you like about Shane Black. Smart whip dialogue, buddy movie, two very charismatic leading men, some ultra violence, some snappy dialogue, plenty of laughs, plenty of action. What's not to like? And I know for a fact, Andy, you like this one as much as I do.
yes, I don't know. Did we watch this together?
I think we did. I think we did way back in 2016.
Both of us were fans of Shane Black. We like what he's done. And previous to this, he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
which is another great film.
And we went into this because it looked very Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it very much is. It's like a spiritual sister of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because it follows the same kind of themes with, like, people investigating stuff, clashing together, coming together, investigating the same thing, and not necessarily getting on, but having that Shane Black banter that slowly builds into some kind of friendship and camaraderie, whilst the stumbling and bumbling around. And this is what Shane Black does so well. And it's just such a shame that this film wasn't a success at the box office, because it would have been nice to see him tap into this kind of things. Of course, it's very similar in style to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Where You Find Them. And this was inspired by Brett Halliday's novel, Blue Murder. So there was a lot of ideas and concepts coming from the same author. Not direct adaptations, but it was more just both of them were just like, Shane Black's a big fan of these pulpy novels and decided, I want to do something pulp. The period setting of the 70s, I think, is what really helps this film work. And I know that they went through various iterations before they settled on the 70s, because it was going to be set contemporary. It was going to be a TV series at one point. CBS showed an interest in picking it up.
Yeah, and Black thought about it, wrote a 64-page version that would serve as the pilot, but Black would later, upon promoting the release of the final film, spoke, disparagingly of the idea of a TV series, stating that such a show wouldn't have been any good. So he joined up with his producer, Joel Silver, who was initially aware of the idea that he felt the audience wouldn't be welcome into a period piece, but changed his mind after producing Sherlock Holmes back in 2009. And Black stated the change in the time period helped, as in contrast to the divisiveness that we see now.
Yeah, I think a TV show now through one of the streaming networks could be better. But it's the fact that CBS was never going to allow most of this content in a show. And that's why they kind of balked at the idea. And that's why Shane Black basically went, that it's not going to work as TV, and it would have been garbage because they would have restricted him too much. They would have told him, you can't have that, you can't have this, you can't have that. And without everything that's in this film, it wouldn't feel the same. It's just a fun, great film. It's a great little mystery because it's all about the death of a porn star called Misty Mountains. Death of a porn star called Misty Mountains, and the breadcrumbs of clues that lead into some other huge conspiracy that's going on. And it's how it plays out as a mystery. For those of us who like a murder mystery and also like a conspiracy theory mystery film, there's enough in there. But then you've got two great central performances from people who aren't generally known for comical performances. They're known for dramatic ones, they're known for action films, but both of them, Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, they jumped at the opportunity to A, make this film because it was so funny at the scripting stage, and B, work together because they both loved each other's works and just wanted the opportunity to bond on set and get to know each other. And you
they
can tell.
work so well, don't they? I mean, they are that magic that happens in a great buddy movie. I'm a sucker for good buddy movies, whether it's Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, Lethal Weapon, or the Terence Hill and Bud. What was it? Terence Hill and brain work. The Bud Hall. Do you remember the
Bud
guys?
Spencer.
Say again. Bud
Bud
Spencer.
Spencer.
Whether it's the Italian buddies, Terence Hill and Bud Spencer, I love a buddy film, and this is what was my into it. Yes, it's Shane Black, who is always capable of tilting a well-worn path and tilting it in a different direction. I mean, he did that with Iron Man 3, which is I think hugely underrated. But he manages to take the crime thriller and just do something fresh with it, and that's what I like. It's funny. It's got some great action sequences, and it's dialogue and is what makes it jump out.
Yeah, the dialogue between it is snappy, it's punchy, it's witty. It's the kind of dialogue as well that revisits of this film opens your eyes to some exchanges that you didn't quite take the context of the first time round, and you can enjoy it and be amused by something that seems new because you missed it the first time. Ryan Gosling in this, his comic timing is absolutely nailed to perfection, and his pratfalls are some of the best pratfalls in modern cinema that you'll ever see, particularly at falling backwards over the wall and down the hill. The guy has just got is his expression whenever he's falling or getting punched, is his reactions to things, everything is conveyed in such a good way that this person who you tended to think at the time for things like Place Beyond the Pines and other such serious dramas, showcasing such a natural flair for comic timing and ability. He can do anything, and it's why, like, when he got cast in the Barbie movie, and people went, "Well, he looks good, but is he funny?" So you guys clearly didn't watch this film. Everyone should watch The Nice Guys simply just to see why Ryan Gosling keeps getting linked to comedic roles ever since, because he's so good, and up against like that because Russell Crowe he's the muscles, he's the bulk, and he beefed himself up for the role because he wanted to make sure that if he was going to be someone who goes around breaking people's arms for a living, he needs to look like he could handle himself in a fight. And the pair of them play off each other well. They're both contrasting in nature, but kind of working towards the same thing, and so forced to work together before realizing that they actually kind of enjoy working together. And then you've got the third part of the investigation.
I was just going to point out what fantastic chemistry they have on screen together. They clearly are. They clearly are having a great time, and that shows. And that respect, and you know, it's always sad when you hear of movie stars and you think they have chemistry, and they don't. But these two really do. They really play off each other wonderfully, and that's down to Black's very tight and funny script.
In addition, you've got the third part of the investigative team, which is Holly, played by the young Angourie Rice, who child actors in films, usually a bit of a struggle, aren't they? But Shane Black has a great way of writing child characters to not actually feel like the children. And he always has this wisecracking, like, cocky child. Even in Iron Man 3, there was a wisecracking, cocky child. And it works in Shane Black ones because she's the serious one. She's the one who's helping these bumbling idiots uncover what's going on. And she's great in it. And she really balances the whole trio of them. Because even though it's called The Nice Guys, it should be The Nice Guys and her. Because she is so essential to how the story plays out. She's there for the peril. She's there to have that little latch of attachment of the characters. But it's her interplay. I love when she confronts Russell Crowe's character of like, aren't you the guy who beat up my dad? It's like, sucker punched. But it's just a great, great, feel-good, fun film about murder.
We should have had sequels to this movie because at the end of it, spoilers, they formed the Nice Guys detective agency. But sadly, the film underperformed. It was up against some tough competition. And I think one of the reasons it underperformed is that we've sadly moved on from this adult kind of action thriller, which were the films that you and I grew up with in the 80s, when you could have wise ass talking leading guys with enough gunplay and some adult themes, and they would do very well. The Joel Silver movies of the time, but sadly we didn't get to see these guys again, and it's such a shame because I am so invested in having more adventures. I can't remember the character's name with March and Healy.
Yeah, I think if it had gone down the TV series route, I think we would have had a moonlighting kind of situation, which could have ran for multiple seasons with that same kind of like love-hate relationship between the pair. I cannot express how much I force this film on as many people as I can. Whenever I find that
There's
someone's
nothing
not
wrong with
watched
that.
The Nice Guys, I'm like, look, I'll find out where it's on. And right, it's over here at the moment. Go home tonight and you need to watch it. Because I think that this is one of those films that was sadly overlooked by far too many people who would get a lot from it. I love, you know, how a stickler for detail in backgrounds and sets and things like that. This is a film that pleases me with how much attention to detail there is. It's set in 1977. The Hollywood sign was all dilapidated and weather-worn and damaged. Cue image behind me. At the time, because it had never been maintained, and it read basically Hullwood, because of all the broken letterings. It was the following year that they finally invested money into redoing it. That was in there because the film opens coming over the Hollywood Hills over the broken sign. You've also got a fuel station sign which references the gas rationing that was going on in the US at the time, where if you were an odd-numbered car, you would be able to refuel your car on like a Mondays and a Thursdays. If you were an even-numbered car, you could do a different... because there was a fuel crisis, and so they had to make sure that they couldn't have queues after queues after queues. So they rationed it by your license plate. And there's a nice little thing at the Comedy Store. The Comedy Store has Tim Allen in stand-up.
Oh, right. I didn't notice that one.
He'd started his comedy career elsewhere, but then moved to LA and became a regular player at the Comedy Store in the 76 to 78 era. So it's little bits of detail like that make me smile, because it means that the person who's made the film has put the effort in to make it work right, to make it feel right. And if they've put the effort in, we should put the effort in to watch their film and enjoy it.
There's the element of LA just being smog ridden as well all the way through, because LA was such a filthy city airwise, and you could, if you look at movies back in the day, you can see the smog in the skylines, and so they play on that. The DOP added a smog filter, and it gives that impression all the way through. This is a great movie, sadly underseen. It didn't do well at the box office. It did okay. It broke even, but not enough to garner having a sequel or anything else. And if you haven't seen The Nice Guys, and you know that we're big fans of Shane Black, so we highly, highly recommend it. Give it a go. It's well worth it. You'll have a lot of fun, and you know what? You'll thank us. And now it's time for this week's deep dive. Dive. This week, as part of our deep dives, we are going back to 2016 to look at the very dark, very personal fantasy drama film directed by J.A. Bayona, from a screenplay by Patrick Ness, based on Ness's 2011 novel of the same name. We're going to be looking at A Monster Calls. The film starred in voice Liam Neeson, Sigourney Weaver, Felicity Jones, Toby Kebbell, and Lewis McDougall. The story features Connor, who grapples with his mother's terminal illness, and he's visited by the monster, a giant anthropomorphic yew tree, who quite simply tells him stories. This film is an emotional gut punch. Beautifully directed, beautifully told, full of meaning, full of ideas of loss. And Andy, when you watch this again, it kind of hit you hard.
It really did. Now, I just need to say straight away that this was a recommendation for a deep dive by Stephen Young out there, who, you remember last time we tackled one of his films, it took us like 18 months to get around to it.
Yeah.
So I worked out it's been about 18 months since he first mentioned this one. So in another 18 months, Stephen, we'll get around to doing another one of your suggestions. But this was such a good suggestion. I'd not seen this film since it got released. I remember seeing it on release and being in tears in the darkened screen of the cinema. Watching it, but it's one of them that's I've kind of not gone back to, and there was no reason I've not gone back to. It just didn't feel like a film that I needed to rewatch.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I popped it on again this week, because it reminded me of how powerfully, movingly emotional it is, how layered the film is about humanity and, the dual nature of mankind, and how beautiful everything looks. Yeah,
I agree everything that you're saying. I couldn't come back to this film this week for various things that have happened over the last year, that I just couldn't put myself in that place, and not because it's a bad film. Far from it. It was just it is very raw. It is a very very a very emotive movie that is beautifully done.
The whole approach of the story, yeah, it's a coming of age story. You've got the young Connor, who is dealing with his mother's illness, but also dealing with bullying and pressure at schools. And it's as he's trying to cope with all his own burdening emotions that the monster comes to visit him.
Yeah, he does lots of drawings, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's very artistic. He takes after his mother in that she was always artistic, and he's inherited that kind of trait. And then when the monster comes to him and says, "I will tell you 3 stories, and then you will tell me your story," and the monster's stories are each like fantasy tales, like a prince and a princess, or a king and a queen, and they sound like typical fantasy tales, until you get to the end of it, when it suddenly flips it to point out that sometimes a good character can do bad things. Sometimes a bad person can do good things. And it teaches the young boy that what you see on the surface is not always what is within. And that leads to, after the 3 stories, and in confronting the bullies at school, it leads to him telling his story and his truth. And at that moment, my eyes erupted, because his story about dual nature back to the monster, the thing that he's been fighting inside him, that the monster has obviously sensed the presence of and come to him to help guide him on this. Oh my, it is devastating. and it's really beautifully done. It's beautifully done because all the cast involved in this give it their all. We've said multiple times young actors can be very hit or miss, but Lewis McDougall, who plays Connor, you'll have previously seen him in Pan. I believe it was in the Peter Pan with Pan wasn't a great film, but he wasn't bad in it. But in this, he sells every moment of it. And when you've got a child actor who is outshining names like Sigourney Weaver, Felicity Jones, and Toby Kebbell, you know you're in good hands. And it's the capable hands of J.A. Bayona, who has really worked with the writer of the book in adapting this in such a perfect manner that I can't think of any moment in the film that feels like it doesn't really boost the film's profile.
No, it resonates with love. It's one of those films that feels very, very, very personal to the director and close to the writer. And there is that rare thing. There's not a misstep throughout the film. There are elements of treading very fine lines between fairy tale and the imagination and the horrors of the real world. Those elements of dark fantasy and dark themes, and it's always touching. It's moving without being sentimental, and it balances very, very easily all those different components and makes it work, which is a hard thing to do. And one of the hard things to do about emotive films, because let's be honest, you kind of know where it's going right at the get-go from the opening scene. You know what more or less some elements of the resolution is going to be, but it doesn't lightly play with your emotions. It takes you on this journey, which surprises you on many occasions. But it's not over sentimentalized. There's an honesty to it and somewhat of a brutality to it as well.
Now, you remember last week when I reviewed the latest Liam Neeson offer?
Yes.
And I was very, very snipey about how Liam Neeson is in films. This film is one to remind you that even when he's not physically present on screen, what Liam Neeson is actually capable of. Because as the voice of the monster itself, his voice has a warmth, a depth, but a commanding presence all at the same time. And he is the perfect voice actor for this walking yew tree who tells stories. He tells his stories in such a way to draw you in that Liam Neeson is now on my list of people who could read a shopping list to me and I would be enthralled.
He's got a fantastic voice. He's got a fantastic presence. That has always been Liam Neeson. He has a strong, very unique screen presence. What's very sad about his career, and I'm sure Liam Neeson will disagree, doing very well and still working, is that he's not taking those chances anymore. He's not making those movies where he could, at one point, he could do anything. He's done comedy, he's done romance, he's done action, he's done science fiction. But he's now fallen into this. He's gone the Nicolas Cage route. He's doing movies which don't push him as an actor. They're very, very, very similar. And I'd like to see Liam Neeson go back and do something like A Monster Calls, something that has gravitas, something that is fit for his talents of being a really good actor and move out of the comfort zone.
There's an interesting bit of trivia for people who spot attention to detail, and I'd spotted this attention to detail, and the more I've thought about it, I think it's got relevance to the backstory of the monster.
Is it the photograph?
The photograph of Connor's grandfather is Liam Neeson. And so this yew tree monster is kind of a representation of the grandfather, and it's particularly significant once you get to that closing moment when you realize that the monster's been around previously. That's why the monster is key to this family. That's why the monster is there for this family. It's because it's the spirit of Connor's grandfather guiding them going forwards. it might just be that they just wanted someone to put in a photo, and so they threw Liam Neeson in there. But it really lends well to the actual themes of the film and the journey of the film. The animation for the monster is fantastic. I love the design of it. I love how it breaks up from the tree. I love how it slowly stomps through like the town, smashes walls through so it can talk. It's beautiful looking, but it's not the only beautiful looking thing. The location is picturesque. It's
shot around Yorkshire.
Yeah,
some
and
of it just up the road from here.
The school scenes were in Colne Valley High School in Huddersfield.
Yeah,
it's a great looking film. The storybook, like the fairy tale stories that the monster reads, you get storybook kind of artwork presented on screen to depict it. Everything about this film looks and plays beautifully to draw you in and just really hit you with that emotional. The last 10 minutes, it's hard to watch the last 10 minutes, not because it's hard to watch physically, not because it's hard to watch emotionally, but because it's hard to watch because your eyes are just covered with water. You're just blubbing tears for 10 minutes at the end of this film. But it's it's one of those films that after the tears have all been wiped away at the end, you feel a sense of relief. You feel that like you've just managed to just get rid of some of your own demons at the same time as Connor's got rid of some of his demons. That's the kind of film that works on such an emotional level, one that makes you recognize elements in your life that you've got a dual nature for and come to accept them and come to bear with them and work out how to go forward with them.
I just want to mention J.A. Bayona's career, because he directed The Orphanage back in 2007 with Guillermo del Toro, and then he did the, again, gut-wrenching drama, The Impossible, which has got my favorite Ewan McGregor performance in. He brought us Tom Holland. In fact, Tom Holland is uncredited at playing the monster at one point for a couple of days shooting where Neeson couldn't be on set. And then in 2008, he gave us Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which we've said before, for half of the film is quite a great movie. And then it just goes off in a direction absolutely unnecessary. I'd like to see more of J.A. Bayona. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. On looking at The Orphanage and Impossible and Monster Calls and putting aside Fallen Kingdom, because he showed so much promise. Yes, he did a couple of episodes of the Rings of Power, the Lord of Rings series, and I think he did a couple of episodes of Penny Dreadful. Fantastic style. I'd just like to see more of him and see him back on the big screen doing quality work like this, because I think he's got a very, very interesting visual style and great voice.
Yeah. The film wasn't a success at the box office. It had a budget of 43 million and only scraped 47.3 million, so it didn't go into profit. It was nominated for a wide array of awards. It won significantly at the Spanish awards, the Gaudi Awards and the Goya Awards. It pretty much swept the board at both of them. Elsewhere, it just got nominations and the odd one or two awards picked up. But this is a film that I suggest that everyone should watch. It's ideal for all ages. It's a beautiful story with fantasy elements that tells a very complex personal journey of a young boy coming to terms with potential loss and acceptance. Get it checked out, guys. If you've never seen this film, Stephen Young is right in recommending this one for a deep dive, because I am so glad I revisited it.